I was actually as a shipper, and then worked as a broker. And in the last 15 years or so, I've been a military freight consultant working inside the system. What I really do with the military is I'll just give you a brief synopsis. I work to help get them set up into the system to move freight. Okay, but most of all, I train them how to use the system. The system is very complicated, and that's one thing I learned back when I started in 2007 was there's no one that would help train you and to make you understand, to
Mhm.
help you to understand what that looks like. And as the only one that does this in this specific division, I have found that the value that I bring is that when people can learn how to use the system, because the military doesn't tell you how to do it, they give you information, but it's fragmented.
Uh-huh.
It brings me a lot of satisfaction, right, when they start moving loads. There was about 3 years ago, kind of a need I saw within the military was that there there was a need that when the driver pulls up to the base to get checked in, the military knows who the person is, but for some reason there's no verification process. So when the driver goes in, the military will check their background, and they'll say, "Oh, they've got a felony, they're not a U.S. citizen," and sometimes they're just arrested right there, and the company's called and said, "Hey, the driver had a warrant, and they can't, come pick up your truck."
Uh-huh.
There's two facts, there's two situations here, concerns. One is obviously a service failure for the broker because, when they booked the load, the company was good, but the driver was not qualified. And two, it's a bit of a national security crisis or issue because they don't know who's pulling up to the base. And so I started working on a system that would be a verification process system. Okay.
Mhm.
Basically, because the military and the broker weren't communicating, the military could say, "Give me a driver's license number, something to identify, oh, this guy can't come on base because there's no pre-check, right?" And so I was building the system, and it's a military grade background check that checks exactly what the military does. Well, that has been launched, but that's been launched to work with. And one of the military brokers that I work with said, "Phil, can my shippers use it? I got a big shipper, a USDA shipper, that they don't know who's pumped to the base or the dock." And he had like 7 loads stolen because the drivers who pulled up were not the drivers that were dispatched.
Mhm.
So whether it's a fraud ring, whatever it would look like, it wasn't the person that was supposed to be there. And so I've been working on that part to do a commercial side. So
Okay.
then we have, as an immigrant, as a son of an immigrant, um, you know, this issue with the driver legitimacy, which is not an immigrant issue, it's a safety issue. But unfortunately, it does. There's two parts of this. There's the non-domicile driver that gets a license, but the visa is shorter term than the license. So if they get a 6-year CDL, but they have a 2-year visa and they don't renew it, they still have an active license. Now it should be active, but we know how things work. And then the other part would be just people who came into our country who shouldn't be driving. Now, again, there's a lot of drivers that are American citizens that should drive or that are legal to drive, but we're talking specifically non-domicile. Um, then there's another category which was just introduced to me, and it's called cabotage.
Mhm.
Have you heard of cabotage before?
No, tell me more about it.
Sir, cabotage is actually where drivers, and I don't know where they come up with the name, but so we have the rules in the FMCSA rulebook that drivers from Canada and Mexico, what they have to do is if they've got a load into the United States, they have to go to the place to deliver and then go back to their country. They can't go more than 50 miles off the path, And so cabotage is where they're staying in the United States and they're doing freight movements in the United States, not legally, okay? Or it might not be a crime in the sense of a federal crime, but it'd be a civil infraction. However, it could be a federal if they're not reporting it the right way on their taxes in their federal documents. So the idea of bringing people into the system is great. How do we make sure that the drivers that are but legitimate, right? So if we have drivers that are coming in that are flooding the market, we have 200,000 non-domicile drivers. It's affecting rates. It's affecting work. There's no way I can compete against someone that takes a load for $1.25 a mile and sends it out of the country. So here's the solution that I really thought about. And while there's a lot of different solutions, ideas, things we could do, really, if you think about it, Sean Duffy said, and he said it in a maybe of a different term. He said, we're going to hold the shippers responsible.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about that, and I thought, it's like having two gates locked in the front and one in the back. You're going to let all the animals out of the pasture. And maybe that's my dad's Eastern European expressions coming out.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that you have a lot of emphasis placed on drivers and a lot of emphasis placed on brokers. And I realize with the deregulation that shippers can choose who they want to, and that's great. But we're not talking about that. And I know that even some of the issues in the Supreme Court, they're talking about, what's the broker's role in this? I think C.H. Robinson and Montgomery, for example, if it's a safety issue with a carrier and they have an accident, who's at fault? The issue here I'm talking about is protection of liability. So the question I ask is, if there is a driver that's not supposed to be licensed or not supposed to be on the road picking up a load, who's exempt from liability? Who is free and saying, I have no part of this? And I really don't think there's anyone. So the point about this is to really make it known that the shippers have a responsibility, a due diligence, and if you want to look at my panelists, there's a wide variety of people coming. I really appreciate everyone that's coming. This is a big event, and I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of a future spotlight that I'm looking at, because this is just a start. But what I wanted to go back to say is the shippers need to make sure the drivers that they load their freight on are authorized. And if it doesn't have to be a big whole bill and a whole congressional change. It really just needs to be an addendum added into the verbiage of the FMCSA to give into the law, so that it gives the FMCSA teeth to bite.
Mm-hmm.
Because unfortunately, and I think there's really good shippers. I think there's good people in every situation. But I've been as a broker. There's times you're pressured by a shipper who's like, I'm never going to give you business again if you don't do it my way. And to me, that's unnecessary pressure to try to find a truck, right? It also says that when you have your due diligence as a shipper for everyone, then the marketplace is even, right? Because there's a lot of people that, and then you have the risk of who's on the road with you. So I'll give you an example, and I won't go into any specifics, but when you talk about high security freight, ammunitions, those type of things, for example, they're not on a flatbed. They're in a dry van or in a box truck or something. And so when you're driving next to the person, it could be, you don't know what's in that freight. Now, I say that for example, I tell my wife, don't worry, the truck's, not going to blow up on you. But the point is, you don't know who's driving the truck, and you don't know what their record is like. And we've seen too many people die or get injured, and it's like almost like human collateral for something that can be done, fixed. Everyone's lives are important. I think about a little 7-year-old girl out in California. She was hit by a driver. She lived, but by a driver without a legal CDL. And, she's Maine. She won't ever be able to speak. And the thing is that the argument would be like, well, that could be an American driver. But the point is, yes, it could be, but it was by someone who shouldn't be on the road. And so let's not dilute the issue by saying, well, it could be someone. So I really want to point this back to a positive effect. I'm just kind of giving you a verbal or a full scope of this. This event is about making sure every part of the industry is heard. So we have shippers present, shippers who can give this experience of what it's like when a driver pulls up to the dock that doesn't speak English, or you're not sure who that person is. You have carriers. OIDA is going to be there. We're thankful for their presence. Great organization. I know there's a lot of people who aren't part of OIDA, but there's going to be presence there. We're going to have TIA is going to be there. We have the insurance sector, risk management. We have factoring companies, because when they factor their freight, there's a lot of fraud that happens obviously with money. You have legal, lawyers, just a lot of people. Then you have your federal. We have a representative that represented ICE. He was in charge of the enforcement part of ICE. He just retired. We have a couple FMCSA and a couple of state troopers, 3 or 4 of them that are going to be there. So there's a wide variety of everyone that's involved, and I might have missed 1 or 2 segments, but if you look at the agenda, it's a pretty packed 2-day agenda. That's not going to be a lot of downtime. The idea is, when this is done, our purpose, and if you go back to the front page, the first page, if you don't mind, there's to the top, I think.
Your success or your deliverables?
All the way to the top, I think.
Okay.
The ultimate outcome. Okay, shippers and brokers must ensure that the driver they have is the person that's supposed to be driving a truck. Okay, it's not brain surgery, it's not rocket science, but it's going to require a lot of work, because it's going to require a lot of cooperation, and that's going to be the hard part.
Gotcha.
Now, a few more minutes. I don't want to take up your time anymore, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here. This is just the beginning. So this is a passion, a movement, a purpose. When I say movement, nothing gets done unless you do something, and I want to do something about this. And it's hard. I'll tell you what, putting this on has been very stressful. It's been 4 weeks since I started this. Usually it takes it about 6 months. I'm really glad where it's at. And anyone that wants to join and support the movement can join right now. This is becoming, like I mentioned, a 501c6 corporation, and non-for-profit. So there is a membership page if they want to join. And I really say that because, if we don't do something as a group, as an industry, it's not going to get done. I do plan to have events coming up, and possibly a large conference coming up sometime this year, or maybe next year. It'll include vendors, it'll include people that can bring ideas. After this is done, this foundation set, then we work on, hey, this is an all man on deck thing. It's not a one person, it's not one standard set, but we're working towards the goal, the mission of making the drivers accountable, the shippers accountable, the brokers accountable. So
Gotcha. Okay. Maybe at a high level, then, as we kind of wrap this up, there is a in-person element to this in Atlanta,
yes.
And there's also a virtual element,
Correct.
maybe too? Okay.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on that just
Absolutely.
a hair?
So exactly, yes. So the in-person, you could do 1 or 2 days. I tell people 2 days is best, but there's a lot of things going on. The live stream will be up, and that's still working through that part, getting ready here in this next day or so. But they can do it online. They could do it virtually. They can also order the the video series that's going to come out. If anyone wants any information, they can contact us either on the website or on, and there should be a contact information at the bottom there, or going to emailing info@driverlegitimacy.com.
Gotcha.
And I can even send those out to whoever wants to show them, but there is going to be availability because there's a lot of people who can't make it that want to be here. So,
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate that hybrid nature because, to your point, not everyone has the luxury of getting out to Atlanta and taking time off work. So being able to make it available online and live streaming is a great way to make sure everyone gets
thank
to be
you.
part of the
Yes,
message.
yes. I will put on the page here a prominent link saying to sign up here for online.
Gotcha.
That was one of the things that I noticed this morning. But there's not many seats, as you can see. There's not many seats. We had about 100 some seats, but there's not many seats left in Atlanta, and so we're excited about it. And thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Sure, sure. The platform and this whole Monday morning sort of live stream events update is all about kind of shedding light on what there is going on in the industry, and the Driver Legitimacy Summit is one of those things happening this week. So happy to provide some visibility and a platform for that.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you. And I'll tell you, I'm not a public speaker, but I got plenty of people that have a lot of information and a lot of knowledge, experience, and I'll let them do the speaking. But I just really appreciate you having me on here, and there's a lot of things that we could do together. Thank you, Nathan. I
yeah,
really
yeah.
appreciate it.
Well, feel free to stick around and chime in, but we'll kind of move on to the second kind of part of the show here, where I just do a quick overview of what is going on this week and next week.
Okay.
Maybe a quick shout out before we do continue on. You'll see here at the top of the Supply Chain events page, we've got two sponsors for this month. That's OctUp, who really kind of specialize in making sure that 3PLs that are doing fulfillment don't lose margin and profit out of the bottom by not billing for every single possible thing. And then also YMX Logistics, who are really big into this integrated yard operating service where they can bring the drivers, the trucks, the systems, and take care of everything that goes on between the gate and in the dock door. So really happy to have them as part of the annual membership program here at Supply Chain, and to give them some visibility kind of in this platform in this way. So we've talked with Philip. We've heard all about the Driver Legitimacy Summit that's taking place on the 5th and 6th in Atlanta. I've caught up with a couple folks in my network that plan to be there, and I saw some names I recognize there on the speakers list. So looking forward to hearing how the summit goes and what comes out of it. Maybe we'll just move on just real quick. The Supply Chain calendar in general here on the website, supplychain.com/events. At the moment has over 300 events here listed for 2026. So a big one going on right now is the RELA Link taking place in Orlando. I was there last year. Couldn't make it this year. I'm hanging out here in Texas instead this time, but a lot of supply chain folks there in Orlando for the RELA Link conference. A couple other things. There is some CBP webinars. The NCTA Women in Trucking Summit is taking place. There is an event going on in Northwest Arkansas for supply chain professionals. There's a handful of webinars, few of them here, all going on 4th and 5th as well. If we scroll on down, we'll notice the Driver Legitimacy Summit there starting on the 5th. If you happen to be in India, we've got Logimat taking place. And then here close to home in North Texas, the ASCM chapter is hosting a procurement focused professional development meeting focused on taming the tail spend of your portfolio of spend. And then next week, I guess we could dive in real quick. The big thing will be Manifest, which unofficially kicks off on Sunday, on Super Bowl Sunday. I will be there. There's a ton of events going on adjacent to Manifest itself. Freight Movement is hosting an event on the Monday night. There's supply chain volleyball going on Tuesday morning. Also during the day Tuesday, kicking off is GeoTab Connect at the MGM Grand, just down the road from the Venetian there in Las Vegas. And then I'm hosting actually a supply chain midday meetup at Manifest on the floor on Tuesday at noon. I've also got a pretty substantial just list of all the places that I'll be coming up in the next 6 months or so. So looking forward to seeing everybody out there. And also, just one last bit for anyone who is kind of curious about where I might be, there is the Sergere Where's Nathan page, which has a link to when I am at these events to be able to track me down to within a few feet at these shows. And it also kind of shows what the upcoming events are that I'll be at. So that kind of wraps it up for today as far as what events are coming up this week here coming up down the road. Phil, what are some other, other than your own summit that you're hosting, where are some other places maybe coming up in the next weeks and months that people might
Oh,
find you?
absolutely. I'm glad you asked. So I was specially invited to Matt's. I'll be a
Okay.
guest speaker on the floor.
Okay.
There's going to be on the show floor. I'll have an hour. It's going to be on the Friday at between 5 and 6, and I will be speaking to whoever is there. I've never done this before, but I'm honored to be specially invited because they felt like this was an opportunity to be there. And I actually am going to have a booth there um, and working with drivers on that aspect.
Okay.
Um, I there's a few other places I'm hoping to be, but
Okay.
as schedules make it, I'm just kind of working through it all right now.
For sure. For sure. I will also be at Matt's for my first time this year as well. So I'll
Oh, perfect.
try to, drop a pin and we can catch up and meet up
Yep,
there. Um,
absolutely. Well, good luck to that. It's a lot of work, a lot of fun, but had a really good turnout. Um,
okay.
so thank you very much.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks for coming on and best of luck. Smooth sailing with the summit this week. And I'll catch up with you later.
All right, thank you, Nathan.